the human use of human beings. In technology, AI uses feedback loops to learn and become smarter. For example, recommendation algorithms like Netflix. Wiener saw technology as more than applied science. It was applied morality, simplified takeaway. Everything tends to get messy over time. This is known as entropy. Machines and living beings can create temporary pockets of order, resisting entropy for a while. They do this by learning from feedback and making decisions based on past actions, much like how our nervous system works. We might live in a time when entropy isn't fully in control, and that's when interesting things like life and machines can happen. The author says that machines, like living creatures, can temporarily fight against disorder called entropy. They do this by organizing things in a way that keeps things from getting too messy. Machines do this by using feedback. They learn from what happened before and adjust what they do next. It's like how our brain learns from what we've done and helps us make better decisions. Humans live in a world shaped by rules, ideas, and symbols. For example, in chess, the rules, like how a knight moves, are symbolic, while the pieces like the king and queen are just names we give to symbols. Humans' thoughts and actions are influenced by these invisible systems of meaning, and AI might work in a similar way by processing and interpreting data in its own symbolic system. If a boss only gives orders without checking if things are actually happening as planned, they could end up making mistakes. A good leader listens to feedback so they can adjust things and avoid problems. This is why feedback is so important in learning, whether you're in a control room or leading a team. Feedback involves using the results of a system's actions to improve its future actions. Simple feedback is like a thermostat adjusting temperature based on current room conditions. Complex feedback or learning happens when the system not only adjusts, but also changes its overall strategy based on what it learns. Why does this matter? Well, systems that adapt and improve based on feedback are more efficient and capable of handling unpredictability. Now, how do we apply this? In personal growth, you can reflect on past actions, which is your feedback, to adjust and improve. In technology, AI uses feedback loops to learn and become smarter. Think of recommendation algorithms like those on Netflix. The passage is ultimately about optimization and learning systems, whether in machines or humans. By using feedback loops effectively and designing balanced systems, we can achieve higher efficiency and adaptability. Reflection questions. Can you identify areas in your life where you're overusing or underusing resources, like the unbalanced design of the one-horse shay? How do you use feedback in daily life? Do you let it help you grow, or do you ignore it? Where can you introduce learning mechanisms in your routines or projects? Got a print from here? All right, imagine you're in a world where ideas and messages have to travel through very narrow, expensive tunnels. 100 years ago, anyone could shout their thoughts and ideas out, and they'd be heard. There were small newspapers, local shows, and even just people talking in their communities. If someone had something to say, they could share it without needing a ton of money. But now, because everything is so expensive, like printing papers, making movies, or even getting books sold, what you hear and see has become less about what matters and more about what will make money. The news isn't as much about what people really want to talk about, but about the easiest and safest stuff to sell. Movies, TV shows, and even radio shows are about what has already been tested and works for a lot of people. In short, it's easier to make things that are safe and predictable than to take risks with new, fresh ideas. Now here's where it gets interesting. The people who want to create, whether in art, science, or writing, don't always have the right chances to grow. In the past, if you wanted to become a writer or a scientist, you might just dive in, learning on the go. Now, it feels like you have to go through a lot of hoops, like university degrees or special courses, just to prove that you're worthy of being a creator. And even though you might be super passionate about your craft, you often have to follow strict rules that stifle creativity just to get ahead. So instead of focusing on genuinely fresh ideas, schools and businesses seem more focused on creating safe work, things that will make money or maintain status, and that's a problem. When people start doing things just for the prestige or social status, the actual value of their work drops. It's like everyone's just going through the motions rather than putting their heart into what they create. This is especially noticeable in science and the arts. The real push should be to create something new, original, and interesting. But too often, people are stuck doing what's easy, following rules that limit their creativity. This is bad for society because it means we're getting less of what's truly meaningful or original. What we need are people willing to break those molds and create things that matter, not just play it safe. In short, the book says that society is losing the value of true, original communication because the cost of sharing ideas is too high, and the focus is more on what's safe or profitable than what's meaningful or fresh. Now think about how modern machines are designed. Instead of complicated gears and parts, machines today often use electric motors and circuits. This makes everything more efficient because the designs are simpler and can be calculated and fixed easily using math. This is like the shift from old-school inventors who needed to build physical parts from scratch, to now where we can just design with circuits and computers. The example of the ship and the vacuum tube comes next. Back in the day, on a ship, if the automatic steering broke down, there were big, heavy wheels to steer it manually. But with new inventions like the vacuum tube, you could control things like a huge ship or a massive factory with much less energy. This tube could take a tiny bit of power and make it much stronger, like turning up the volume on a speaker. Invention used to be all about mechanics, gears, levers, and physical parts. But now it's about understanding nature's laws and applying them to make things work. This shift has made machines smarter and more efficient. For example, the vacuum tube, which was first used in telephones and radios, didn't just stay in communication. It started to get used in all sorts of machines, changing industries we didn't even expect. It's like how a tool that started as a way to hear people from far away ended up being used for much bigger things, like controlling massive factories. Finally, the text mentions that big leaps in technology often take time for people to really understand. When airplanes first came out, for instance, people didn't realize how they would change the world. The same thing happened with the vacuum tube. It wasn't until later that engineers realized how much it could do, especially during World War II, when there was a need for faster, smarter machines. So this whole section is showing how technology has evolved from being mechanical and physical, like gears and levers, to being based on electric motors, circuits, and the power of understanding natural laws. It's all about making things easier, more efficient, and more powerful in ways that didn't seem possible before.